Yesterday it was probable, but now it's official. Ivan Matlekovic is a Tar Heel.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, August 1st. How is that real? 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. It's my anniversary. Happy anniversary to my bride who's sitting right out there working on a graduate studies assignment while I'm in here doing this. I love you, Maggie, and she can probably hear me saying that. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Tar Heels news every single day. Special shout out to all you everydayers and all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord who are with us, and all the great members of the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, who, by the way, I just sent an update to about Luka Bogovac. And so I'll give you that update here as well in just a minute. Update in real time. Yes, Maggie is listening, and she says, love you too, boo. That's what it's all about, baby. Let's go. Oh, man, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome in, you East Coasters. I know it's late for you guys. We got West Coasters in here. We've even got our guy, Matt Zamitz, coming to us from down under in Sydney, Australia. Obviously, it's very Friday over there in Sydney. Matt, hope things are good today as you get into your weekend. All right, guys. Ivan Matlekovic has officially committed to Carolina. We're going to discuss that, his role, what it means for the current roster limits. I'll even issue an apology for messing up with something I said yesterday about that. On Thursday, the ACC preseason football rankings came out. All ACC came out. We'll update that in the third segment of the show as well. Some Project 28 news for you. What's Project 28? Stick around and you will find out. Reminder, today, Friday, the staff is hosting Seyon Keita, the top international big man in the class of 2027, for an official visit. If you haven't seen this dude is doing 6 official visits in 6 days. Kansas, Indiana, Kentucky, Duke, Carolina, and UConn. Gross. That dude's got to be exhausted, but he's on campus today, Friday. Hopefully things go well there. A Luka update. Literally multiple times every day I get asked for Luka updates. It's hilarious. Literally got one like half an hour ago from a source. You know me, I'm not a clout chaser. I'm not an aura chaser, but if I do get stuff that I trust and believe in, I will pass it along to you. So the word from the source is that Luka has had that visa appointment we've been hearing about, is currently waiting on approval, and the word is won't be here until start of school. So that's a couple weeks away. And the other thing is nobody's there right now. Remember, the coaches are there, but the players are all gone. So he would be a lonely guy anyway, so it might be for the best. All right, so there you go. The much awaited Luka update. Let's get into Ivan Matlekovic has officially committed to the Tar Heels. If you watched Thursday's Locked On Tar Heels, you know that Coach Rob and I had just talked about this possibility on Thursday's show, and now it is official. First saw it from Joe Tipton. I always want to give credit to where it's coming from. As per usual, Inside Carolina's Sherelle McMillan had done a very good job talking about this in the lead up. Had even said, quote, that sources have told Inside Carolina that High Point transfer Ivan Matlekovic is awaiting admission to the university before committing or signing with UNC. It's unclear if any other schools are still pursuing the 7-foot center. Well, it doesn't matter because now he's a Tar Heel, and that says to me that all the admission stuff has been cleared and everything's good to go because he's committed, and so that's what that's going to tell you. And so here we go. Ivan Matlekovic, a sophomore, incoming sophomore, 3 years of eligibility. He was listed last year on High Point's roster at 7 feet tall, 245 pounds. He's from Sisak, Croatia, Sisak. I'm a nerd and I like to know about stuff like this. So I went and looked it up on the map. It's like inland into Croatia, a little bit northeast of the Adriatic Sea. Croatia is such an interesting country in terms of its shape and stuff. I don't know. Go look it up. It's pretty cool. Anyway, last year he was at High Point, just frankly did not play much. Literally appeared in 5 games And in those 5 games, played 6.2 minutes a game, 2.6 points, 1.8 rebounds. Prior to that, he had played for Pladost, Pladost, which is a second-tier pro league team in Croatia, where he averaged 5.9 points and 5.1 rebounds. Here's what you need to know. None of that statistical data, frankly, really matters, which is wild to hear me say that coming out of my mouth, because usually that's all we care about and that's all we talk about. How many points, how many rebounds, 3-point percentage, all of that. Like, we're all hung up on it, me included. I'm a stats guy. If you're with us, you know that all the time. What matters is that Ivan is, as Coach Rob said on yesterday's show, quote, an insurance policy, end quote. He is somebody who is going to come in and not be expected to really see the court, except in the type of mop-up duty we would usually see from walk-on level players, blue steel, whatever you want to call it, through the Carolina lore. And so he's not coming in to be the next guy off the bench after Henri Veesaar. That's just not what this is. He is an insurance policy, and frankly and critically, someone to help in practice. Henri Veesaar is 7 feet tall, and he needs another 7-foot-tall dude, whom, by the way, Ivan Matlekovic outweighs Henri Veesaar, at least per their roster weights on last year's rosters. And so it's somebody that Henri Veesaar can go up against every day in practice, that is literally his height, that can push him around, and that's great news. And so it's so funny when news like this comes out. If you go look at Joe Tipton's report on this news, all over the place. Boy, I didn't realize Carolina had fallen that far. Oh my, I can't believe it. Oh, look at how they've fallen. And even Carolina fans in some chats that I had already seen on Thursday evening as this news broke. Boy, this is all we can get. I don't understand it. You are completely missing the point if that's what you're saying. Let all the outsiders talk, fine, good, whatever. His role, he understands this, the staff understands this, is to come in and be like, think about Rudy's role. Have you ever seen the movie Rudy? Right? Like, surely you have. If you're caring enough to watch a sports podcast at 11:48 p.m. on the Eastern Coast, you know Rudy, right? What was his role? To come in day after day after day and get beat up on every day in practice to make the varsity players better. That is the role that Ivan Matlekovic will serve with this team. So don't you dare, me included, undervalue or underestimate Ivan Matlekovic's role. If you ask the coaches, if you ask his soon-to-be teammates, they will tell you how critical what he does is to their success. And, oh, by the way, this is a dude that went just as far in the NCAA tournament last year as the Tar Heels did, because High Point won the Big South last year, their first ever Big South title, obviously lost in the first round, but so did the Tar Heels. So there is that. A great comparison Coach Rob made yesterday on the show is he had a 7-footer last year at Milligan University, an NAIA school where he's the head coach, whose name is Hanjay Tamba. Tamba is a 7-footer that was literally the defensive player of the year, but he has transferred this offseason to St. John's. So now he's up at St. John's, and you're like, how did he go from NAIA, skip past D3, D2, and go all the way to the team that won the Big East regular season and conference titles last year? Because he's serving this exact same role. He is at St. John's to be a practice player to help out. Coach Rob knew that deal. Hanjay Tamba knew that deal. In fact, Coach Rob had connected him to Carolina. It was a little bit late because of that, but they were looking, Carolina, since way back earlier this summer, had been looking for this type of role for someone to come in and do. They didn't get Tamba, he's at St. John's, and so Ivan Matlekovic is doing that. And so when you think about the kind of role he will play, I use Coach Rob's phrase of insurance policy. It's similar to what Carolina had last year with Ty Claude or the year before with James Okonkwo. The big difference is, let's remember, those two guys transferred in from the Division I level and the high major Division I level. Okonkwo came over from West Virginia after all the Bob Huggins stuff. Remember that? That's when Okonkwo came over. And then Ty Claude from Georgia Tech. Now, that said, from what we know of Ivan Matlekovic to this point, and I don't want to speculate right now on how he could eventually develop, but right now, he is not even remotely at those guys' level. He is below where they at. And again, it is so critical to have this type of player on your team. A distinguishment we made on yesterday's show is the difference between rotational depth and practice depth. Rotational depth is somebody that will actually play, that's in like the top 8 or 9 of your rotation. That's not Ivan. What Ivan is practice depth. Becoming that 13th guy on this roster that is going to be able to help out in different ways. That said, 13th guy on this roster, what effect will Ivan's inclusion have on this current roster? And by the way, as we talk about that, it's time for me to drop an apology on you because I spoke incorrectly about this yesterday. And I remembered it and had some great guys in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord remind me of it as well, and one of our Locked On Tar Heels insiders. So I'll explain all of that, what I mean, coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about our brand new sponsor, Drip Drop. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice that everything is working better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy, especially for me. Literally, I talk for a living. I'm talking all the time in my voice. I can feel it now. It's rough, and I need the hydration that something like only Drip Drop can provide. It's a doctor-developed and scientifically proven fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body and mind absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. So to prove it, I'm going to sample one of these right now in real time. I'm a Georgia boy, so we're going with peach. My bag has peach, lemon lime, watermelon, and passion fruit. So here we go. Let's get a little peach in us and see how this tastes and how it can help hydrate me so we can keep talking about Ivan Matlekovic and the Tar Heels. All right, here we go. We're pouring it in, stirring it up. Listen to this. Oh, man, here we go. Peach Drip Drop. You ready? Oh, yeah. That is good. Tastes like home. I'll tell you that much right now. Drip Drop. It needs to become the go-to. It has been for me in these long summer days, and it can be for you when you're sweating it out. So right now, Drip Drop is offering you, Locked On listeners, 20% off your first order. Just head over to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Again, that's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. All right, let's get into looking at more of the big picture of what this is going to do and mean for Carolina's roster this upcoming season. So Ivan Matlekovic, I'm going to keep drinking my Drip Drop as we go. Man, that's good stuff. Ivan Matlekovic is the 13th scholarship player on this roster. There's one senior. For those of you watching on YouTube in real time, you can see this. If you're not watching in real time, you're listening back later on the audio platforms. Great to have you with us. You can find this scholarship chart that I always put out on my Twitter feed. It's there. Seth Trimble, the lone senior. And then you've got 5 juniors: Luka Bogovac, Kyan Evans, Jaron Stevenson, Jaden Young, and Henri Veesaar. Speaking of Luka, we are still waiting on like when the NCAA clearance happens and exactly how much eligibility he'll have in what class. But the expectation from the staff, as passed on to me from multiple sources, is that he will be credited as a junior. The sophomores are James Brown, Zayden High back in the mix. He's a redshirt sophomore. Ivan Matlekovic will be a sophomore, and Jonathan Powell. And then the 3 incoming freshmen that we've talked so much about: Isaiah Dennis, Derek Dixon, and Caleb Wilson. So there are those guys. So what will his role, Ivan's role, be, and what effect will it have on those other scholarship guys? Let me use a question that T-Man asked me on our Discord to help answer that. T-Man said, Isaac, do you think he's our center number 2, or will that be James Brown? This is a great question from T-Man because it's like, this dude's coming in. I don't know how he will level with everyone else. It's a great question from T-Man. My answer to T-Man was, he is going to be Ivan. And I think you probably got this from how I was framing it in the first segment. Ivan is going to be below the other 12 scholarship players. And so James Brown will be above him, the rest of the front court, all of those guys. You could almost think about him as scholarship minus or like preferred walk-on, like walk-on plus kind of thing. So I believe he will be below the scholarship guys and ahead of the walk-ons or designated student athletes. And I'll explain that along with my apology coming up in just a second. It's interesting when you look at this roster that there are now 3 international players that are part of it. Obviously, Henri Veesaar was the first one to commit, the Estonian, and then Luka Bogovac, who is Montenegrin, and then now we've got Ivan Matlekovic, who is Croatian. So I hope you're boning up on all your European stuff. I feel like I need to fly to Europe now and take a tour of all these guys' hometowns. That would be rad and super fun. Now, something that Coach Rob and I started talking about yesterday when we were looking at this is, oh man, we've got these roster limits now of 15 players. There are no scholarship limits. Everyone can have a full scholarship, but you only get 15 players. And I forgot in the midst of talking about, like, we were like, do you dress two of them because there's only two more slots? What's that going to look like? And I completely forgot in that moment about part of the house settlement, which is called designated student athletes. And so I want to give a big shout out to a couple guys who helped remind me of this on the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, who are Will Hager and JJC. Will is also one of our Locked On Tar Heels insiders and reminded me about it there. So look, my pledge to you, as always, I talk about this. My goal is to provide you the best information I have and can think of at the moment. And I commit to you and promise you that when I get things wrong, I will come back and I will own it and I will fix it. And so thank you for your patience with me in that. But, you know, again, as much as I talk, I'm bound to get things wrong sometimes. And with all the new legislation, I honestly just forgot about the DSA. So I was so grateful to these guys for helping remind me as well. So basically, the designated student athlete provision in the house settlement allows for anyone who was on last year's rosters, 24-25, or who had already been promised a role on a 25-26 roster, was protected as a designated student athlete, meaning that the new roster limits could not force them out, so long as the school, in this case, Carolina, designated those players as designated student athletes. Here's the official language from the NCAA's release on this. It says, quote, "The rule changes include legislated exceptions for current student athletes with remaining eligibility whose roster spots would have been impacted by immediate implementation of the roster limits. And those designated student athletes will be identified by their current or former schools, and regardless of the school for which they participate, they will not count," here's the kicker, "they will not count toward that school's roster limits for the duration of their eligibility." So there's a couple things there. Last year, Carolina had 3 walk-ons on the roster and 1 on roster who was redshirting. So the 3 that were on the roster active were Russell Hawkins, John Holbrook, and Dante Mayo. Last year, Russell was classified as a sophomore, John and Dante as freshmen. And reminder that Elijah Davis, Coach Davis's son, was redshirting. So all 4 of those guys should be protected by this provision. And even though there's only now 2 roster spots left to get to 15, those guys are all grandfathered in as DSAs. We're calling them for short, assuming that the coaching staff or the school, compliance office, whoever will officially do it, designates them as such to the NCAA. Why they wouldn't, I don't know. They definitely will. It's going to happen. And also, people have noticed that Evan Smith has also been participating and practicing with the team. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got one of those final 2 current open spots so that the other guys can be designated as DSAs. So again, big shouts to Will and to JJC for reminding me of that. And again, apologies for missing that yesterday with Coach Rob. That said, it was a fun conversation with Coach Rob, but that's where things are at. As to the back to the roster makeup of it all, I've pondered a lot this summer and this offseason with Van Allen Lubin out the door to NC State. Who's going to be Carolina's backup 5? I think Coach Robinson's thought is that it will be Jaron Stevenson. I think James Brown, you know, we will probably see more of him than we otherwise would have had Van Allen been still in the mix. And then, so that's part of why Ivan makes a lot of sense here as an insurance policy. Again, not to be second in line or even third in line, but just there and a body to help at practices. I would imagine Zayden will be more of a factoring into the rotation at power forward. But if Carolina wants to go small and put him out there and just go warp speed, you might see him at the 5 as well. But that's kind of where things stand as I see it right now. So there you go. Update and apology for me with that. Hopefully that makes sense about the DSAs. If not, reach out to me on our Discord. The link's in the show notes for that. Or find me on social media or wherever it is. Happy to be talking with you more about that. Okay, now we need to actually switch from basketball to football because on Thursday, the ACC released the media voting results from ACC kickoff including the ACC preseason poll and the preseason All-ACC team. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the Tar Heels were literally not represented on the preseason All-ACC team. Did they get it right? We'll have that conversation coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends over at Game Time. Man, you've been there. I've been there. I know I have. The stress of like, you want to buy concert tickets or whatever it is, and you're sitting there waiting because there's a digital line that's going to open. And okay, 0 seconds, refresh. And you're waiting in line, hoping you're going to be able to get a good ticket. And then something happens and you get booted out of line and you just lost your spot for that show you've been dying to see. Well, live music, it should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices, they actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. You worried about what happens if your plans change? Don't be. The Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. In fact, our family just recently used Game Time to buy tickets to go see Dude Perfect in like their live tour. It was awesome and it was so fun. And I had never used Game Time before, so I was like, man, I hope these tickets work. And they did, and it was seamless. And I'm so grateful to Game Time, and I'm gonna go back again and again and again. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets for yourself with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, a little bit of a football conversation and a Project 28 update for you. For those of you who've been tracking with that, you know what I'm talking about. So the preseason media poll results came out on Thursday. And a surprise to no one, Clemson was overwhelmingly voted as the number one team in the ACC with 167 of the 183 first place votes. That's pretty crazy stuff there. Working down from there, Miami second, not a shock. SMU third. I might have seen them flipped, but I mean, that's the obvious top three to me. Actually, obvious three of the top four, with Miami getting the second most first place votes, and then the number 7 place team getting the third most first place votes. We'll get there in a second. But before we get to the Tar Heels, I thought Louisville was going to be that top 4 team. Like, I thought that was the clear and obvious top 4. How about this? Georgia Tech voted 4th overall in the ACC, receiving 2 first place votes. Very interesting stuff there. We'll see what happens. But then 5th is Louisville, Duke 6th, Florida State getting 4 first place votes is 7th overall. That's pretty hilarious. 3rd most first place votes, but 7th total. And then come the Tar Heels. Carolina comes in at 8th in the preseason media poll. I think that's probably about right, given the lack of knowledge of what this team's going to be, but also given their schedule that does seem to be decently manageable. And then following Carolina is Pitt, NC State, Virginia Tech in 11th, and somehow they got a first place vote. I'm going to go ahead and guess that that's a Virginia Tech media person. Syracuse 12, Boston College 13, Virginia 14, Cal 15, Wake 16, and Stanford 17. Now, here's why this matters. I've talked so much about Carolina's schedule and how manageable it is. Just looking at, not looking at the non-con stuff of it, Carolina starts with Clemson. They're number 1 in the conference preseason, and they should be, they're the projected best team. Carolina has them at home coming off an off week. But after that, listen to this. Carolina plays Cal, ranked 15th in the preseason poll. Virginia, 14th in the preseason poll. Syracuse, 12th. Stanford, dead last, 17th. Wake, 16th. Duke, 6th. And NC State, 10th. So of the 8 ACC games, Carolina plays the preseason teams that were 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17. That's why I'm like, 8th might not be high enough just because Carolina's schedule is so daggum easy. And that's why I went on Locked On College Football with our great host of that, Spencer McLaughlin. And Spencer said, Isaac, I have, FanDuel has Carolina at 7.5 wins for the over-under. I have them as the most obvious and easy under 7 wins in all of power conference football. And I said, Spencer, hang on there, buddy. First off, that's dangerous because nobody knows what this Tar Heels team is going to be. And secondly, it's dangerous Because look at this schedule. If something has gone horribly awry, if Carolina's not able to manage this schedule really, really well. And to that point, Spencer has Carolina 15th in his ACC preseason poll. I'm like, dude, that is Spencer. I love you. And I love, having you as a buddy on our network. That's just wrong, dude. Dead wrong. So everybody needs to go spam Spencer's show and just say, Spencer, Tar Heels way too low. How about that? Let's get it. But the other thing that came out, obviously, was the ACC preseason all ACC team. And as you look through it, what you'll notice glaringly and obviously is there is not a single Tar Heel listed. Not on offense, where there's a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, all purpose, 2 tackles, 2 guards, and a center. No Tar Heels. Whole bunch of Clemson. Good grief. Just on the offense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Clemson players on offense. Defense, 2 ends, 2 tackles, 3 linebackers, 2 cornerbacks, and 2 safeties. We got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Clemson players. Not a single Tar Heel in sight. Specialists, place kicker, punter, and another one. No Tar Heels on any of that. ACC football preseason player of the year. No Tar Heels got votes in that. Now, that said, I'm saying that as though it's a shock. It ain't a shock to me at all. It's just kind of wild and crazy when you think about not at any position, not anywhere was a Tar Heel on this list. And you think back and it's like, well, I guess because there's not an obvious Omarion Hampton or Drake May or whatever it is. But still, I'm like, that Nixon didn't make that. Some of these other guys, I mean, our guy Kamori House, who we had on the show, earlier this week, by the way, if you missed that interview, you need to go check it out, man. Kamori is awesome. He's a dude. He, if it's easier for you, if you follow him on Twitter, he quote tweeted our show today. And so you can go find it there. That dude is going to be a stud of a linebacker. And some of Carolina's linemen are absolutely jumbo on the offensive side. I have a hard time believing that when we get to the back end of this season, that there is still no Tar Heels on the all ACC, basically first team is what that preseason list is. So fine, whatever. It's not there. I don't even necessarily take it as a slight because I get it and I understand it. I just don't think it'll be the same when we get to the postseason. And then finally on the show today, #Project 28. If you don't know what that is, one of the goals of our show is to celebrate Carolina's 28 varsity athletic sports. When we're in season on Fridays, we do what I've typically called a weekend whip. I think I'm going to start calling it our Project 28 moment to preview everything upcoming that weekend. And then on Mondays, the weekend whip around, look back. Now we're going to call it Project 28. And so, again, we want to celebrate that because in this day and age of the House settlement, of conference realignment, of all that kind of stuff, a lot of people are worried about these programs falling. And we got to support them. I know Bubba Cunningham's behind it. So let's keep cheering on these other teams. So a couple updates for you. Women's soccer preseason national poll has come out. The Tar Heels women's soccer team voted preseason number 1 in the nation. I think I quote tweeted it and said, as surely as the sun will rise, man, because they are a juggernaut. It's so great coming off that national championship. Love to see them defend that and repeat. Remember, this will be the second year. Man, it's hard to believe of a brand new head coach. Crazy stuff there. And then women's volleyball picked 5th in the ACC preseason. They just keep continuing to climb on the preseason all ACC team. We got Safi Hampton as part of that. So great stuff there. Congratulations to volleyball and Safi as well as the women's soccer team. And man, we are getting closer and closer to actual action getting back and going. In fact, a month from today, holy smokes, is the first football game. Carolina hosting TCU on September 1st. That'll be Labor Day, so it's going to be great. I want to thank all of you who have been with us live. It's been great to be together. Thank you, East Coasters, for staying up with us. It is now officially Friday, 12:02 p.m. or a.m., and it is August 1st. Crazy stuff. You guys, if you've not subscribed to the show here on YouTube, for those of you watching or those of you listening on your favorite audio platform, man, it's simple to do and helps make sure you don't miss a second of our show. Just right down there in the corner on YouTube. Hit subscribe and stick with us. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to see you in there. That link's in the show notes. Absolutely free to join. We talked about the Locked On Tar Heels insiders earlier, who I shared that Luka Bogovac update with ahead of anybody else. That link is also in the show notes. We'd love to see you in there. But for now, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again on Monday, but until then, peace.